Hey Bioteam. So this video is dedicated to making dihybrid crosses, which is one of the main skills you'll need for our genetics unit. And just involves making Punnett squares to predict offspring's phenotypes for two traits at the same time. So let's work through an example of this together. In humans, color blindness is caused by a recessive allele found on the X chromosome. And height is determined by alleles on autosomes, where the allele for tallness is dominant to the allele for shortness. If a tall female with healthy eyes, whose father was short and colorblind, has a child with a short colorblind male, what's the likelihood that that child will be a short colorblind male as well? Now there's a lot of information in these problems. It's a lot to swallow out the gate. But the first thing you want to do is define your alleles. So in this case, we have some background information. We're told that the allele for colorblindness is recessive, and it's found on an X chromosome. So we'll represent that as a recessive allele on an X chromosome. Presumably then, the allele for healthy eyes is a dominant allele found on the X chromosome. And last, the allele for maleness would be found on the Y chromosome, which doesn't contain any sort of coding for colorblindness or healthy eyes at all. Then we're told that height is determined by alleles found on autosomes, and the allele for tallness is dominant to the allele for shortness. So in this case, because the alleles are found on autosomes, we're not going to put the alleles onto our gender chromosomes. Instead, we'll just leave those as single letters. We'll capitalize the allele for tallness because it's dominant, and we'll use a lowercase letter to represent the allele for shortness because it's recessive. All right, so with this out of the way, the next thing we're going to do, if we want to find out the types of children that the parents can have, the first thing we need to know is what types of genes the parents can give to their children. So our first step is to determine the parents' genotypes. And to do this, we'll just use clues that are found in the passage. So we'll start with the mom here. We're told that the mom is tall and has healthy eyes. So we know that the mom has at least one dominant allele for tallness and at least one dominant allele for healthy eyes. However, what we don't know so far is whether she is homozygous healthy and homozygous tall, or whether she's heterozygous healthy and heterozygous tall, or some combination therein. However, if we keep reading, we'll see that the female had a father who was short and was colorblind. That is, her father was homozygous recessive for shortness and had a recessive allele for colorblindness that the father must have donated to her. So in this case, we know that the mom must be heterozygous for height and heterozygous for eye health and colorblindness. And we'll do the same thing for the hypothetical father. In this case, it's a short colorblind male. And so we know that in order for this male to be short, he must be homozygous recessive for shortness. Have two copies of the recessive allele, because if he got a dominant allele, he wouldn't be short. And likewise, we know that he must have a single recessive allele for colorblindness and a Y chromosome that's making him male. And so we can indicate that here in drawing form, and we can write it shorthand down here as these four letters. All right, so these are the genes that the parents can donate to their offspring. But if we want to figure out what sorts of kids that the parents can make, the next thing that we're going to have to figure out is what types of gametes each parent could donate to their offspring. And to do this, we're going to follow just two simple rules. The first rule is the Law of Segregation. That is the idea that the parents might have two copies of every gene, but they only get to donate one. And the second rule is that the gene that they donate is random. So for instance, the mom in her egg cells, she could donate the tall allele and the colorblind allele, or she could donate the tall allele and the healthy eye allele in her egg cells. And we'll actually write these different combinations on the side of our Punnett square here. Okay. But likewise, the mom could also donate her short allele. It's random. So she could donate her short allele and the allele for colorblindness, or she could donate her short allele and the allele for healthy eyes. So we'll write out all the possible combinations on the side of the Punnett square. Meanwhile, the father in his sperm cells could donate his short allele and his unhealthy X chromosome. or he could donate his short allele and his Y chromosome. Likewise, he could donate his other short allele and his X chromosome, or his other short allele and the Y chromosome. And in fact, if you notice that the man's gametes here replicated themselves, that these two gametes are the exact same as these two gametes, you're not alone. Some biologists actually won't write these remaining two columns because they're just duplicates of the first two. Regardless, now that we have the gametes that each parent can produce, we can determine the possible zygotes, the possible children that these parents can make. So for instance, if the dad were to donate this sperm cell with the short allele and the colorblind allele, and the mom were to donate this particular egg cell with a tall allele and a colorblind allele, their child would end up heterozygous tall and homozygous for colorblindness. So this would actually be a colorblind woman that is heterozygous tall. And we can do this for all 16 possible combinations of gametes here. You can see in this particular child, if we donated this sperm cell from the father and this egg cell from the mom, you would end up with a boy that is colorblind and heterozygous tall. We're not going to do this for all the remaining 14 boxes. We'll just skip ahead here. But at the end of this, you can see all the different possible combinations of zygotes or children that these parents could make. And so this gives us the information we need then to answer our overarching question. We were asked, what's the likelihood that they produce a child who is a short, colorblind male? Well, we can go into our 16 possible outcomes here and look through all of the different males. So I'm only going to look through the ones that have Y chromosomes here in this case. And find the ones that are short and colorblind. And so what I see here is that these two individuals would be short and colorblind and male. And so the likelihood that the parents produce a short colorblind male is 2 out of 16, or simplified to 1 out of 8 chance. That's it. At this point, you guys are going to have different types of these problems to work through. We'll see you next class.